Hello and welcome to another episode of the B2B Leadership Podcast. My name is Nils Vinje, and today we're going to be talking about how do you choose a leadership coach. And one of the first things that we have to get clear on is why you would hire a leadership coach in the first place. So we take a look at the why behind it. We'll see that the most successful people in the world all have coaches. I mean, think of the greatest sports athletes, the people in the top of their respective profession, whether that's in the professional world, the social world, the political world, it doesn't matter. They all have coaches, right? What they've discovered is that leveraging someone else's experience will help them make progress faster. So Tiger Woods, when he was ranked the #1 golfer in the world, always had a coach, and probably even multiple coaches, actually. So the person who's the absolute best at something in the world goes out and hires somebody to make them even better. That's what's behind the mindset that needs to go into why you would think about hiring a coach. Now, coaching is an incredible investment because of the truth that is behind this statement. The best investment that you can ever make is in yourself. It will always pay the highest return of any investment you ever make. In your stock portfolio, your real estate portfolio, whatever portfolio you have, the single greatest return you will ever get for an investment is the return on the investment in yourself. And I personally have lived this truth, and the first 10 years of my professional career really didn't believe it. It wasn't something I did. I didn't invest in myself. But when I did, and I changed, and I invested anything necessary to get what I wanted by leveraging someone else's expertise and hiring a coach, the world changed. And my income grew many, many multiples of what I was doing before. I found a tremendous amount more fulfillment, and I made progress faster in just a couple of years than what took me 10 years to do. That's the value of coaching. And that's why we would hire a leadership coach. So there can be a stigma around coaching, especially when we attach the word leadership to it, because lots of people think this is only something that's for executives. And the B2B world especially hasn't done a great job of making coaching available to a large number of people. And what happens is that the executives in any organization have usually a coaching stipend. Maybe $10,000, $15,000, $20,000, $30,000, $50,000 or more that they are allowed to spend to hire an executive coach because they're at the executive level. It's one of those perks. This happens all the time, right? But the reality is that it's not just the executives who need coaching, number one, and it's not just the executives who should have access to coaching, number two, right? Coaching is someone that can benefit everybody. And we want to talk about who should hire a leadership coach. So in my opinion, if you run one or more teams today, in other words, you are technically in a people leadership position where you're either a head of a team, you're a team lead, you're specifically a manager, a director, a VP, whatever it is, if you run one or more teams today, you absolutely 100% should be working with a leadership coach. And the reason is that your coach knows things that you do not. And they have tools and techniques and strategies to help you get through what it is that you're going through from a challenge perspective and do it even better and even more efficiently than you have been doing. So if I gave you the option, tell me which one of these would you choose? If I gave the option is you can work the next 2 years and make a certain amount of progress. Let's just call that, progress X. And if I told you that by working with a coach, you could make X amount of progress, which we previously associated with that 2 years of doing it yourself, you could make that in 3 to 6 months. Would that be worth it to you? Well, that's what coaching does. It's an accelerant. And it's the most fun part because you are already leveraging the experience somebody else has had to help guide you along the way. Now, coaching is not about being just told what to do, and we're going to get into more specifics on that in just a second. But first, let's define what is leadership coaching, because it's a very general term and it has been twisted and turned in a lot of different ways. So the International Coach Federation is for all intents and purposes, the best governing body that exists when it comes to the world of coaching. And they have a really good definition of what leadership coaching means. And here's their definition. It's directly from their website. Coaching is defined as partnering with clients in a thought-provoking and creative process that inspires them to maximize their personal and professional potential. Now, the process of coaching often unlocks previously untapped sources of inspiration, productivity, and leadership. Now, I love this definition because it hits on several key pieces. Number one, it's a partnership. Partnering with clients in a thought-provoking and creative process. This is not a perfect linear thing where you show up to a coaching conversation and it is step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. No, it is a creative process, and it is thought-provoking because the job of a coach is to see the things that you can't see, to bring awareness to the things that you don't know, and to help you work through the challenges that you're facing, not to tell you what to do. It is a partnership, it is thought-provoking, it is a creative process, and it inspires the client to maximize their personal and professional potential. Coaching is not just about the professional world. So if you hire a leadership coach, don't think of this just as, well, this is something that's only going to apply to my job. That's 100% not true. Because the skills that you learn as a leader and that help you grow as a leader are the same skills that help you grow as a person. Right? Whether you're inside working with your internal teams in your company or outside, collaborating with friends, maybe working in a social environment, doing some volunteer work, whatever it is, it's all related. And we should not try to compartmentalize our strengths to just, these are things that I do in the professional world in my job. And these are just the things that I do in my personal life. And the one goes one way, the other goes the other way, and never the twain shall meet. That's a recipe for a lot of frustration and confusion, frankly, because you have to be two completely different people, right? So the last part of this definition is the process of coaching often unlocks previously untapped sources of imagination, productivity, and leadership. And I can tell you firsthand what this means to me. So over 10 years ago, I became a certified leadership coach, and I went through a leadership coach training program. You cannot become a coach without going through the process of coaching yourself. It's an absolutely fascinating experience. It's one of the best that I've ever had in my life, period, personal or professional, because the untapped sources of imagination, productivity, and leadership came through as a result of going through the coaching process. And this is what literally lit a fire within me. And I found that my purpose in this world, this is going to sound big and kind of out there, but my purpose in this world is to share my gift of coaching with the world. That's why I'm here. That's why I was put on this planet. And I'm extremely thankful that at this point in my career, I can honestly say without a doubt that that is the purpose that I live each and every single day. That's the purpose that I bring into my business, to my clients, to my work, and that is what has enabled me to be successful and to feel really good about the work that I do and have passion, inspiration, and all of that comes together. Now, what you'll notice in this definition, I touched on this earlier, is that what leadership coaching is not. It's not about getting told what to do. It's not about having work done for you. As a leadership coach for over 10 years, I had a lot of people, when I have potential conversations with a new client, ask, what am I going to get out of this? That's absolutely 100% the wrong question to ask, because what that tells me, and it's something that I would either seriously dig into or seriously question, and if the individual wasn't ready to take ownership for themselves, there was no possible way that I or any other coach was ever going to be able to help them. So if you're asking, what do I get out of this? That's not the right question to ask. The right question to ask is, what am I going to put into this? Right? And if I put this into it, what are some of the results that some of your other clients have gotten? Right? Because coaching is a two-way street, as we saw in the definition. It's about partnering. It is not going to be done for you. I cannot do the work for you as your coach. I can guide you through the entire process and be there to support you every single step of the way, but I cannot do the work for you. So if you're not ready to do the work yourself, if you're not ready to go to town and dig into everything and push the limits and push the boundaries and use me as an incredible resource, coaching isn't going to work. You should not hire a leadership coach if you're not at that point, right? So you need to be very clear about who should work with a leadership coach. As I mentioned before, you're running one or more teams today, you should be working with a leadership coach. However, the caveat to that is that you have to be willing to do the work. Nobody's going to do this for you, right? Sounds cliche, but it's true. And I do not have, over 10 plus years, have flat out rejected people who were not ready. Because ultimately what happens is they get frustrated and they don't like the experience. I get frustrated, I don't like the experience. And ultimately, our relationship isn't as good as if they were ready to go to town and just do everything possible to make sure they were successful by leveraging me in the most efficient and effective way possible. The second major area that we need to focus on is the coach qualifications. Is if somebody's going to coach you and you're going to invest in yourself and hire a leadership coach, we got to know that they're qualified. So the first question is, have they already done what you want to achieve? And this is a really important piece that even though they're not going to be telling you specifically or shouldn't be telling you specifically what to do in every single situation or that they've been in your exact situation, you want to know that they've already gone through the process that you are about to go through, right? So take myself in particular. I've been an individual contributor. I've been a manager. I've been a director. I've been a VP. And I've been a leadership coach through every step of that journey, and I have coached people through every step of that journey as well. And the challenges you face going from an individual contributor to a manager are different than that going from a manager to a director, and those are different than going from a director to a VP. And even, again, different from VP to C-level. So each of those stages represents different challenges, different ways of thinking, different questions you have to ask. And if you were hiring a leadership coach, you want to know that they had been through those challenges in a similar kind of situation or environment that you are going to go through or want to go through. Because remember, a big part of coaching is taking the fast track to success. Now, sometimes people talk about coaches as, oh, I'm just a coach and I can coach on anything. And technically that is true. However, more progress will be made faster if there's the background from having gone through the experience, if it's on the leadership side, just like the example I shared, from IC to VP, right? That's the progression that a large majority of the professional world is working through as they go through the ranks and get promoted within their individual companies. But again, the challenges they face are going to be different than what the coach faced. However, the major structural pieces of what they have to do to get from one level to the next will largely remain the same. The next major question is, do they have a good reputation? Coaching is all about reputation. And chances are, if you've been in the circles that your coach operates in, if you are subscribed to their emails, right, maybe a podcast like the B2B Leadership Podcast, for example, maybe there's a lot of different opportunities for you to discover whether or not they have a good reputation, and you likely follow people for a long period of time before you engage them. Not always, but a lot of times there's a lot of rapport building that happens when the coach puts out great content and great expertise in a way that's free to everybody through social media, whatever platform of choice. But they develop this reputation. A reputation also comes from the success stories of their past clients. And we want to align with somebody's past clients in order to know if we're a great fit for their particular program. So when I talk with potential clients about the success stories of my past clients, some of the ones that I might share are things like this. And if you're talking and thinking about a leadership coach, these would be the types of success stories that you would want to hear from the person that you are interviewing. So Christine was a director when we started working together, and she said, quote, "Through Nils's coaching, I was able to get promoted from director to vice president. And here's the key part. While I had to put in the work, I wouldn't be where I am as a professional without Nils." So that while I had to put in the work gets back to that partnership piece and what we were talking about earlier, where coaching is not a one-way street. This is not me just showing up and telling Christine, here's what you need to do. It was a partnership, and I guided her through the process, and she successfully navigated getting promoted from director to vice president. Or Melissa, who said, I'm definitely fast-tracking my way to success with my company, and I'm very grateful for the opportunity to have Nils as my coach. So again, Melissa was a director inside a B2B SaaS business and was going through a lot of the challenges, similar in nature, different in context because her company was unique, but similar in nature to things that I had faced in my rising through the ranks, for going from manager to director to VP. And I also had this incredible toolkit of coaching tools to layer on top that put me in the guide position, not the consultant telling her what to do. And she fast-tracked her way to success. She took the shortcut, which was awesome. Or Aurelie, who said, recently, I was promoted. The great work I did, thanks to Nils's expert coaching, enabled me to be recognized for excelling in my role above and beyond what was required. When you excel in your role above and beyond what is required, you will get noticed, and Aurelie did, and she was promoted. It's not really that complicated of a formula, but oftentimes we get so inundated and so worked up about the day-to-day and what's going on, we forget about the big picture. And that's a big part of what a leadership coach will do. So a testimonial like this and a quote directly from a previous client is really important for you to understand and think, hey, I'm kind of at the place where Aurelie was. And Aurelie was a manager when we started working together. She's currently a senior manager working on her way to get promoted to director as of this recording. Jaron was a director when I started working with him, and he said, over the past 6 months working with Nils, my understanding of great leadership has grown exponentially. The really cool part about this is that even though it's been a little while since Jaron and I worked together, he's now a CEO. And he told me recently that he still uses the tools that we talked about in his role as a CEO. And that's part of the magic of coaching. Is this is not just a one-time transactional thing. This is something where you acquire a set of tools that help you confidently handle any leadership situation, whether you're a manager, a director, a VP, a C-level executive, whatever it is. Coaching tools are some of the most effective and the most incredible and the most universally applicable as well, regardless of what situation you're actually in. Olivia was another director who was ultimately promoted to VP. And she said, I'm a more confident and effective leader in my organization as a result of my experience with Nils's coaching. I mean, that just says it all right there. And I still get goosebumps when I read these quotes out loud, because it makes, one, it makes me feel great. But two, I know that my clients' lives have dramatically changed. And to be a confident and effective leader, then when going from a director to a VP level, I mean, that's exceptional. And it is oftentimes, it doesn't happen all the time. Going from a director to a VP level can be you could be riddled with doubt, with uncertainty, with fear, with concern. But instead, Olivia was able to go into that role as VP confident and effective. And she nailed her psychology as a result of our work together. Chad is another one of my former clients who said, my effectiveness as a leader has grown as a result of the coaching experience with Nils, and I would highly recommend him. If you're looking at testimonials and client success stories from a potential coach, and none of them say, I would highly recommend this coach, it's probably a red flag, right? Or it was probably just a mistake. Because ultimately, what you want are people who want to talk about you and their experience with you. When people have great results, they will want to share those results with others, or chances are that they are going to be promoted, and then somebody or multiple people are going to ask, how did you do it? How did you get promoted? How can I do what you did? And that's where they're going to say, well, I worked with a coach, Nils. You should totally check it out, and it'll be highly worthwhile. It was an incredible experience. Right? That's the type of success story that you want to hear. Now, Chad was director when we started talking together, and he's now currently the head of his department on his way to the VP title. And Sarah is another coaching testimony where she said, the skills I've developed through Nils's coaching were a big contributor in my most recent promotion to vice president. So Sarah started when we worked together as a director and was promoted to vice president. And here's one of my favorite pieces of what Sarah has said. I approach each challenge I face with newfound confidence because I have the tools necessary to navigate just about any situation. Now, what I love about that is that Sarah is empowered with tools to navigate just about any situation. And what happens in a leadership position, whatever you're in, manager, director, VP, doesn't matter, is just about any situation will happen each and every single day. If you have the right tools, you can have confidence in any situation. It doesn't matter if there's issues with your people on your team, personnel or something. It doesn't matter if there's issues with how your department operates. It doesn't matter if there's issues with your clients. Whatever the issue is, they're always going to be there. Right? Problems will always exist, but if you have the right tools to overcome those problems when they pop up, you can approach each challenge with newfound confidence, just like Sarah did. So those are some of the examples of my qualifications from a case study perspective and success story perspective that I'm so proud to share. I'm so proud of these clients because they did the work. Right? I was the coach. I absolutely 100% guided them through the process, but they were the ones who did the work. They showed up every time we got together with what they wanted to cover and how they were going to use our time most effectively. So when we talk about qualifications, you need to hear success stories just like some of those that I shared right there to know if the coach is the right for you, because one of those success stories probably feels pretty similar to where you are right now. And if you know that where you are right now is where somebody else started at some point previously, and then this success story outlines where they got to, and that's what you want to get to, then you can rest assured that that coach and that program is probably going to be a good fit for you. Now, the next question is the coach certified? And what I mean by certification is, have they been through a coach training program? Now, this is a really important piece because the certification aspect is one that in the coaching world, there's still a lot of ambiguity about what a coaching certification even means. But what I found to be most important is that a coach training program 100% is necessary to really hang up your shingle and declare that you are a coach, whether you're a leadership coach or some other kind of coach, right? And this is the same process that I went through over 10 years ago. And my goal going through that program was to become a coach. I knew a little bit about it at the beginning, but going through the process of coaching, as I mentioned earlier, was one of the most transformational in my entire life. And that training program was certified by the International Coach Federation. It was wonderful, and it gave me the foundational toolbox to be able to coach my clients and help them through. And I've evolved that over time, been doing this for over 10 years, spending over thousands of hours working with clients. So there's been an evolution. But if you don't have that background in what it means to actually be a coach, it's really difficult to not just sit there in the consultant seat and tell people what to do. And this is probably the number one problem that I see with most people who call themselves a coach but have not been through a coach training program, is that they rely on their expertise. And that's absolutely 100% the wrong approach if you're going to be in a coaching relationship with your client. Far more important is to have a structured path, have a backdrop of content, have a backdrop of tools and skills, and then help the person discover how all of these tools and strategies and tactics are going to play a role in their life and are going to improve their performance. And that takes a lot for the coach because they're not at the center of it anymore. It's not about them. It's not about their knowledge. It's not about their expertise. It's about their questions. It's about their ability to listen. It's about their ability to see the patterns of what is going on that the client cannot see for themselves. So whether or not your coach is the potential coach you're looking at has been through a coach training program is a really important question to ask. And I would ask that flat out. What's your certification? What training have you been through? If you want to just be told what to do, by all means, don't worry about it. But if you want to have a coach work with you in the way that I'm describing and help you discover things so that you take a greater level of ownership over it than if they just told you, they 100% need to have gone through some form of coach training program. The next question we're going to look at is, does the coach have a structured path to follow? The reality is most coaches do not. And for a long time, I didn't have a structured path to follow either. But my success when I've had a structured path has been dramatically different than when I did not have a structured path. And here's why. You as a client or potential client are in a position today, and there's some position that you want to be in the future. And so in order to choose a leadership coach, you got to know what the big building blocks of that path are to get you from where you are today to where you're going to be in the future. Now, if the coach can't clearly articulate this, it's going to be really hard to understand the coach's expertise. So the structured path doesn't mean that the coach has a perfect one step after the next linear progression where if you just do these things, you'll 100% get the result. Like, that's not realistic. Your situation and your company and your teams are dynamic and things change. So what I'm talking about here when I say structured path is more of a framework. And I'll share with you the framework that I use to think about leadership, to share with my potential clients for where they are today to where they want to go. Well, there's 4 pillars that they need to master in order to become an elite leader. And these are pillar number 1, leading yourself. This pillar has to do with everything that you control. Pillar number 2 is called leading others. This has to do with everything involved in leading your team. Pillar number 3 is called leading with communication. Now, this pillar has to do with communicating your value and your team's value outside of your team. And pillar number 4 is called leading with metrics. And this has to do with the measurement of anything to drive the performance of both you as well as your team. So in that short little 30-second elevator pitch there, you now have a framework to understand all of the expertise that I have as a leadership coach. And if we were talking about where you are today and where you want to go, I might share that framework and ask you which one of those pillars do you think would be the most important place to focus on right now? Because the reality is, in order to be an elite leader, you have to have competence across all 4 of those pillars. And then you need the specific training and tools and strategies and tactics within each one in order to attack them. But there's a different path that everybody's going to take because every single person has had a different level of leadership experience, leadership training, etc. So the framework provides the overall structure and the path to follow. And then the work with the coach is all about navigating through that framework in the most efficient and effective way possible. So if you ask a potential leadership coach, hey, tell me about your expertise or tell me about you or whatnot, and it ends up as a rambling, long-winded way to say, I know a lot of stuff, it's not going to be a really effective relationship as if you were received or as if you heard a framework just like I shared with you in the 4 pillars of leadership. So I believe that frameworks are one of the most important and powerful tools, and people who communicate really well, especially leaders at any level, manager, director, VP, have an opportunity to communicate their expertise in a way that anybody can understand, just like I did for you right there. We don't need to get into all the details right here, but I've provided the structure, and you can say, well, you know what? That leading with communication pillar sounds really interesting because I feel like nobody knows what I do outside of my team. I focus intensely on my team, but I don't think anybody else in the organization knows what I do. How do I market myself without feeling like I'm bragging? Well, that's core tools that exist in the leading with communication pillar. Then I would make a recommendation and say that's probably one of the areas we should focus on first to get you a result in that area. Begin laying the groundwork for how to market your leadership inside your organization. And now we have a structured path to follow, right? And as long as there's a structured path, we always can take a next step. When there's no structured path, it can be really difficult. Because how do you know which direction to go? Or how do you know what all the potential places are even to go? So these are some of the key questions that you need to consider when it comes to the coach qualifications. And now we're going to talk about the 3rd major area today, and that is the types of leadership coaching programs that exist. Now, I personally have run as well as been part of, as in I paid for, each one of these different types. So I'll give you my honest perspective and tell you where I am today after doing this for over 10 years. The types are one-on-one, group, and then a hybrid model which combines group with one-on-one. So let's take a look at one-on-ones in particular first. This is going to be the most expensive option when it comes to leadership coaching. there really shouldn't be any surprise here because you are getting a highly customized, intimate relationship with a leadership coach that will probably be characterized by coaching calls either once or twice a month or some frequency. And the reality is there's no real standard for leadership coaching rates, right? There is no, this is what it should cost, this is what it shouldn't cost. It all depends on the outcome that you want and what's appropriate for you. Now, most coaching comes in annual packages. The reason being is that leadership takes time to develop, and leadership skills in particular take time to develop. So prices can range anywhere from $10,000 to $100,000 plus annually, depending on the scope of the topics that you'll be covering and the experience of the coach that you're working with. I know a story of one executive coach who does not charge anything for an entire year unless the person makes the desired changes. And in one particular case, and I heard this story, I don't know this person personally, but he only works with a very small number of people each year. It's a very personal relationship. He is obviously heavily committed because he gets paid nothing if the executive does not change. And of course, this is only for executives. But after the course of 1 year, with an executive, the executive made the agreed upon behavior change, and he sent one bill for $300,000, and the company paid it. That's what it was worth. For that company, they knew obviously what the bill was going to be if he made the change, and the $300,000 was probably a small price to pay for the dramatic shift in leadership skill that that executive brought to the table. So in the one-on-one situation, again, you're going to have the most intense and personal experience, and you're also going to pay the most money. This should not be a surprise. Okay, option number 2 is the group option. Now, in the group option, you're not going to get the personalized intention, but it will be significantly less than the expensive than the one-on-one version, right? And this might range from a few $100s to a few $1,000s annually. And this is probably going to be some, community forum online, and maybe there are some group calls integrated into it as well. So this is a way to bring a group of people together and in some form or fashion, move together collectively, perhaps. Groups are a challenge because if you're not 100% committed, it's really difficult to not kind of lose your path and get a little bit busy with all the other things you have going on. And there's not always a lot to hold you accountable to making sure that you show up. It's on you, and it can be a much less expensive option than one-on-one. But sometimes, depending on your personality and depending on the level of drive you have to achieve the end result, sometimes it can be a challenge. The third option is my personal favorite, and this one only exists as a result of trying all these different models myself as the person running the program, but also as a client of several other group coaching and hybrid coaching models that I've personally invested in myself to figure out how to build my business and how to build my leadership. So the hybrid model combines the best of the group world with the best of the one-on-one and provides a cost savings from a one-on-one approach because of the group-based program, but you get the intimacy of a one-on-one relationship. In my opinion, this really is the best of both worlds. There are a lot of things where hybrid is ideal in a lot of situations. In cars, we have hybrid cars. In surfing, we have hybrid surfboards. There's all kinds of examples of where you take two ends of the spectrum and you take the best of each end and you combine something in the middle. Now, this hybrid model is my absolute favorite, as I mentioned before, and it is the current structure of the B2B Leaders Academy. And the only reason this structure exists is because I've iterated through all the previous things of the one-on-one and the group only, and then combining them to bring the best of these worlds together. So to give you a preview, an example of what this looks like, in the B2B Leaders Academy, there are three main things that we provide. We provide content, community, and coaching. In the content area, members get access to 13 on-demand training modules and counting, because we're building more content all the time. And these training modules are spread across our 4 pillars of leadership that we talked about before. Number 1, lead yourself, leading others, lead with communication, and leading with metrics. And this is designed in an on-demand fashion, so you get the training when and where you want. You do not need to show up at any particular time to get access to the best strategies and tactics in each of these areas. And each module comes with everything that you need to put the training material into action immediately. So that's the backdrop. That's the structured path of what you need to follow. Now, the second major area is community. Now, in our community, we have weekly small group leadership masterminds, and these exist so that you can get a diverse set of perspectives on the biggest leadership challenges you're facing and leave with actionable steps to take. Now, this is incredible because as a leader, sometimes it can be a little bit lonely. And if you're relying only on the voices within your company as your sounding board, well, you're missing a great opportunity to bring a diversity of perspectives into the situations that you're facing. And every single week, there's an opportunity to ask leaders from around the world in the B2B Leaders Academy, how would you handle this situation? In the community, we also come together for expert guest sessions, and we bring in expert guests to share their unique perspectives and answer member questions so that you get access to world-class experts in an intimate setting. Previous guests have included Wayne McCulloch, the Chief Customer Officer at WalkMe, Jackie Ferguson, a diversity and equity and inclusion expert, John Henney, who's a vocal coach to some of the biggest stars in Hollywood, Dan Steinman, who is a customer success pioneer and the chief evangelist at Gainsight. And these experts come in and volunteer their time to spend with us and to answer member questions and to get their incredible breadth of experience shared in a very, very intimate setting. Now, the last key area of our community is we also come together for live workshops. And this is where we take one topic and we go deep so that you get the material brought to life in an immersive experience. So it's great to have the on-demand version of the training content, but when we do the live workshops, we take one element, just one topic out of that, or one of the modules, and then we do spend an entire session just bringing that to life and going through examples. A third major area of the B2B Leaders Academy is coaching. And this combines the one-on-one piece with the group piece, as we were talking about before. So there's an opportunity to get private one-on-one coaching with me so that you make twice as much progress in half the time. Again, I'm an accelerant and have been through the challenges that you're facing. My clients have been through the challenges that you're facing, and I've coached them through the challenges that you're facing. So why not take advantage of all that expertise and get that pointed directly at your situation so you can make twice the progress in half the time. And this coaching, the key piece here is that a lot of times in a one-on-one coaching relationship, people think it has to be about calls. Well, we have to have calls in order for it to be valuable. And I'm here to tell you that that is not 100% true. Yes, calls are great, but calls also take time. And in between the calls is where you really actually need the help and the guidance. Sometimes it's just a little topic. Sometimes it's a question. Sometimes it's a bigger picture thing to think about. So that's why in my one-on-one coaching inside the B2B Leaders Academy, there's a private coaching thread, which is an asynchronous coaching experience. So that at any time, the people who have access to that can ask me questions and get my guidance in terms of questions, things to consider, other opportunities to imagine with a situation that's going on. They can get answers at any point in time. So you ask me a question at any time, and I'll always get back to you within one business day with my ideas, background, some additional questions. So we're really taking the one-on-one coaching model and applying it in a far more time-effective way. Because showing up to a 1-hour coaching call once or twice a month is going to be different than having a constant conversation via the private coaching thread, perhaps even every single day or every few days, every week, whatever is appropriate based on the situation. Now, I can tell you that I didn't always think this was the best way forward. In fact, usually my coaching was just one-on-one in calls. But one of the coaching programs that I'm part of with one of the coaches that I hire has this exact same setup where I have access to group elements, I have access to content training, and I have access to a one-on-one private coaching thread with my coach. I don't need to talk to him on the phone. I need to have access to him to get my thoughts together, to put in our private chat, and then every single day he replies with the things that I should think about. And I have made exponentially more progress in this kind of a setup than I have in the past, where I just had to wait a couple of weeks until I talked to my coach again. So this hybrid model of combining content, community, and coaching is, again, only the result of having gone through the trials and tribulations of putting all these individual pieces together in coaching relationships, and now seeing how they all come together. And this is a unique mixture. This does not exist anywhere else in the rest of the leadership coaching world that I've seen. So if you would be interested in learning more and figuring out if the B2B Leaders Academy is potentially a good fit for you, and if you are potentially a good fit for the B2B Leaders Academy, I invite you to send me an email to Nils, N-I-L-S, at B2B, the letter B, the number 2, letter B, leadersacademy.com. Tell me a little bit about your situation, and we'll have a conversation about whether or not this program might be a fit for you. And if I'm potentially the leadership coach for you, and if this program is the right fit for you. Ultimately, I've done a lot of work on myself by enrolling in various coaching programs, one-on-one, group-based programs, some hybrids, and hands down, this hybrid model is getting the most results and the most efficient and effective way that I've ever found. And so if you're looking for a leadership coach, which you are as a result of listening to this episode, and I've outlined how you should think about choosing a leadership coach, and if I happen to be the right choice for you, well, I sincerely look forward to highlighting you as one of my success stories so that I can brag about you and ultimately helping you achieve the goals that you want, whether you're going from a manager to a director, director to VP, VP to C-level, whatever it is, I'm here to support you 100% every step of the way. So thanks very much for tuning in. Send me an email, Nils at b2bleadersacademy.com, and I look forward to hearing about your situation and seeing if the B2B Leaders Academy is a good fit for you, and if you're fit for the B2B Leaders Academy. Thanks, take care, and have a wonderful rest of your day.